Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today, we are joined by the lovely Joan Smith, who is a social worker out of our Pittsburgh Office of Adoptions from the Heart. Welcome, Joan.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Amanda. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
One of the reasons we brought Joan in today is we wanted to highlight the role that our agency plays when we are counseling and providing supportive services to expecting and birth fathers. I think too often they are left out of the equation, and we really wanted to discuss some of the ways we provide support before, during, and after placement, and really just open the door to folks, specifically men, who may be wanting to learn more about the process and the role that they can play in adoption. So Joan, let's kind of jump right into what happens when you are with a woman, whether she is pregnant or she just gave birth and she's looking to place. What do you discuss with her in terms of the birth father?
One of the first things we talk about is, does she know who the birth father is, and any information that she can give us on his identity? We want to know right from the start of the process who the birth father is, whether he's involved or not at this point. That doesn't really matter to us. We need to know who he is so that we can contact him. One of the first things we want to find out is birth father or expectant father interested in placing his child for adoption? Does he want a parent? These are questions that we would like to ask him directly. We need to hear his voice. We want to know if he does want a parent, then we will step out of the equation. If he's thinking about, that maybe he would like to place for adoption, we want to counsel him. And whether that be by phone, in person, we will go to wherever a father is at, meet with him, explain how adoption works, the different kinds of adoption, whether he wants maybe interested in more of an open adoption, or if he prefers not to be involved and have a closed adoption. These are decisions that he can make, and we respect whatever decision that he wants to move forward with. But we want to hear from him. So that's one of the first things we do. We cannot proceed with an adoption plan without talking to birth fathers. We want to know how they feel. How do they feel about the plan? And it very well could be that they would really like to parent, and that's a good thing. So we need to hear from you and know what your feelings are first and foremost.
Yeah. Joan, a lot of people assume that the only reason why we're reaching out to the father is for the legality of it. Can you explain a little bit more of why it's important that their opinion matters, not just from a legal standpoint, but from the bigger picture of children, parenting, all of that?
Yes, absolutely. Legalities are one thing, but we are way more interested in the child and his relationship with the child. Child has two parents, and it's the child's right to know both of those parents. So the birth father is just as important as birth mother in the equation. And we want them to know that, because ultimately your child may or may not want contact when they're older. And we want to know that. Our goal is to have them know their parents, both parents. It's important. And children, maybe, when they're little, they may not, they don't understand that. But as time goes on, it's so important for their identity to know both birth parents in any capacity. So we definitely want birth fathers involved because of its effect on the child. We want the child to have their full background as much as birth fathers and birth mothers are willing to share with their child.
And I think too, it's important for folks to remember that the expecting or birth mother and the expecting or birth father don't necessarily have to communicate during this process. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with a woman who has had just a bad experience with the father of the child she's carrying. And while I want to respect her decision and her feelings, it's also important to remember that regardless of anything else, whatever you've been through with this person, they are the father of this child. And we want to make sure that their rights are being upheld and we're supporting them in the same way. So I think it's really crucial that folks remember that we can handle both sides separately. They don't necessarily have to connect.
Absolutely. And I've run across that, just like with couples who are married getting divorced and they have children together. Very much the same thing. Birth mother does not have to have contact with birth father, and vice versa. Maybe he does not want contact with her. That doesn't matter in the scheme of things. Each parent will have contact with their social worker. So if I'm working with a birth mother and birth father does not want to have contact with her, that's fine. We don't need that. We just want contact with each party. It can be separately, but we need to know what you each want. So what birth father wants may not be the same as what birth mother wants, and that's okay. You can each set up your own adoption plan, and we are here to see it through. So whatever that is, we're going to go by your wishes, the wishes of each party. You're your own person. You've had this child together, but we will figure it out. And you do not have to have contact between each other.
I think that open adoption has become less taboo of a conversation over the years. Can you discuss a little bit about some of the stigma and misconceptions that, or at least what we hear men still may feel about adoption and what we do here and the work that we put in?
Sure. I think a big part, and I'm going to things that some of the expected fathers and birth fathers have discussed with me. A lot of times they feel that they're shirking their responsibility, that this is their child. They need to be there to provide for their child. And what they don't realize, and what I try to explain to them, is by making an adoption plan, you are not shirking your responsibility. You are stepping up. It is a very hard decision, no matter whether you're birth mom or birth dad. Very difficult decision, and we do not take that lightly. Making a plan can be very difficult. It's very emotional, and you are stepping up. You're trying to do what you feel is right for your child. So, thinking, and I've had, birth fathers hear from family members that say, you're not stepping up. You're not taking care of your child. No, that's not the case. You are taking care of your child. You're doing what you feel is right for this situation. And there's all kinds of reasons. Maybe you're just not ready to be a parent, and that's okay. A lot of people are not ready to be a parent. It just might not be a good time in your life. It's okay. It's so the stigma where you're doing something wrong by placing for adoption or making an adoption plan, that's just not the case. You're not doing anything wrong. You are doing something very selfless and very courageous to try and make this plan. So I think that's the biggest thing that I hear from fathers, that I don't want to be looked at like I'm a louse because I don't want to take care of my child. That's not the case, or you wouldn't be calling us for assistance.
And I'd like to point out that we've had many birth fathers come on AFTH TV and share their stories. So if any of our audience members are interested in hearing those personal birth father conversations, you should check out our episode guide and listen to the stories of some of these men who talk about what it was like before, during, and after placement, because one of our goals is to really help break down some of those stigmas and stereotypes that we still hear. Joan, can you discuss what happens if a man is not certain about paternity? If he feels like he could be the father, but not quite sure, what steps would you take as the social worker in that case?
The first thing, I'm going to talk to birth father, and if he's unsure and he would like to know how he can, how can he get proof? He would be discussing with his social worker how to get a DNA. How do I go about getting a DNA test? Because ultimately, he can decide he wants proof that he is the father, and that's understandable. It's hard for us to know, or for anybody to know for sure. So I think the main thing is that they voice this to whatever social worker they're working with. Let that person know. Let the social worker know that you have doubts, if you don't think you're the father, and your social worker is there to guide you. And one of the suggestions may very well be to get a DNA test on the baby after birth. So those are things we can guide you on that, just to make sure. We want you to be comfortable with whether you know for sure this is your child. And certainly, I would want to know before placing a child.
Yeah. And, just from a legality standpoint, everyone should know that our agency adoption law doesn't necessarily require that the adoption agency does a DNA test. We go off of the word of the birth mother. But when a man is questioning paternity, I think it's important to ask why. If it does come back positive, is there a chance that you may want to parent that child? Will that change your opinion on your support or not support of adoption? So all of these conversations are really important that you have with your social worker. If you feel like the social worker handling the case is more so advocating for birth mom, we can always set you up with a separate social worker too. We've done that in each office as well, where we may separate and have two separate social workers advocating for birth mom and birth father. And that's most certainly an option.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's just better that way. And we will do whatever you are comfortable with. Main thing to understand is express what you're feeling to us, because we can't guess. We are not here to take a child away from anyone. The ideal situation is that both birth parents are in agreement, and we want birth father's input as well as helping choose a family, because that's part of open adoption, where we have birth parents look at profiles of potential adoptive parents and choose somebody that they feel good about, somebody that they feel some kind of connection to. And I've had birth parents where both birth mother, birth father are helping to choose the family. And it really helps, because you want some kind of connection. It doesn't mean that you have to have an open adoption. That's completely up to you as the birth father, but we want you to be involved. That just makes the whole situation better for the child ultimately. So I love the situations where we have birth parents that maybe they're looking at families, birth mother chooses her favorites, birth father chooses his favorites, and then they look at them, whether it's together or apart. And again, you do not have to be in the same room. Birth parents don't have to be in the same room at the same time picking families. We will go to you and meet you separately and show you the same profiles and have you decide what you feel most comfortable with.
Yeah. And then even once child is born, if birth father chooses to want to see baby or still maintain contact through open adoption, there's various options, and they can most certainly be different than birth mothers. So it's all about advocating for what you feel and want, and that social worker will be there to support you through that. I think it's also important to highlight the folks who, specifically birth fathers, who maybe don't feel like they want to participate in open adoption, but they want to come in and sign paperwork. I think that's an important piece to all of this. And I always say to birth mothers, regardless if he chooses to want to participate in open adoption, the fact that he comes to the table and signs his paperwork shows his commitment to that child. And that is something that adoptive family can teach that child about his or her birth father down the road, because that's just as valuable. And I don't want them to feel discredited that, they weren't able to, for various reasons. Maybe they just personality wise, emotional wise, were not able to have an open relationship. But if they come, sign, consent is an important layer to this.
Yes, absolutely. And that's so important. You brought up a very important point, is it's all according to someone's wishes, birth mother or birth father. If you're okay, you want to meet with your social worker, We want to get some background information on you as much as you want to share with us so that your child has a medical background, a social background on you, knows what you like or dislike. These are things that are important, but understandably, you just may not be comfortable with that. And that's okay. You don't have to do that. If you are coming to us and you are signing consent paperwork that you're okay with us moving forward, but maybe right now you don't feel like you can be involved for whatever reason, we're not going to question why or why not, why you can't be involved. And keep in mind that's something that can change too. Maybe right now your feelings, it's very raw, it's very difficult doing what you're doing. And maybe 6 months from now or a year from now, you may decide, hey, I'd like to have a visit or I'd like to have some contact. You can do that. It's, the situation isn't defined right in that moment. So you don't have to have any contact if you choose not to. But if you choose to have contact, whether it's now or down the road, we're here for that. And all you need to know is that all you have to do is call us so that we know, because it's the type of adoption, whether it's maybe you're just choosing to get pictures and letters, how your child's doing and pictures of the baby or child. You can do that. You can choose that you don't want them right now, and the agency will hold those pictures for you until a time when you feel more ready to view them. You can choose to have email contact if you would like with adoptive parents. You could choose to have phone and text contact. You can decide that you'd like to have visits, so many visits a year. These are all things that we talk to you about to get you thinking, what would I like to do? But you don't have to do any of that. If you're more comfortable just kind of stepping back, that's okay too. We just need to know what you want and what you're comfortable with. But that can change as the years go on. And so we want you to know that too. It's never too late to call us and say, hey, I would like to find out more about my child, or I would like to get involved more somehow. We just need to know that. And you should never feel uncomfortable contacting us. That's what we're here for. That's part of the process.
Well, thank you so much, Joan. I've had the opportunity over the years to meet with many birth fathers that you have counseled. And I think one of the things I've always taken from those conversations is that you truly have respect for all of your clients, birth mothers and birth fathers. And the biggest takeaway that we hope folks can receive from this interview is that we believe birth fathers are important. They have rights, they have options. Please know that the agency is here to support you. Call our local office, text us, reach out to us via our website. Know that we're here for you. There's no pressure, there's no judgment. We just want to be a support in your life. So thank you very much, Joan, for sharing your experience as a social worker working with birth fathers. And we are hopeful that our community has learned more about the birth father journey. Thank you so much, guys. Continue to tune in and take care.